students for future work as well. So what we decided that we do is look for funding through our SWP collaborative to launch a initiative to look at what was the world of virtual work for virtual assistants, but starting with virtual assistants, executive assistants, and administrative assistants, understanding that job title had changed remarkably during the pandemic, and looking for opportunities for folks who wanted to potentially work not in a location base, but also having the opportunity to work virtually as well. And so we begin to explore the possibility of two things. One, career fair to actually kind of galvanize the community in terms of employers around virtual administrative and executive assistant type work, but also educational preparation for folks who may be interested in learning this type of work, what skill sets, what emerging skill sets and knowledge base they needed to have in order to adequately fill any emerging job titles that may be currently in place, but it will be in place in the future. So we're excited to have everybody here, and we're excited to learn more from our employers, as well as get insight from our faculty in terms of the work they've done in terms of developing curriculum.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Next up, we have Dr. McKeejian.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well on this Friday morning. Thank you so much for spending a couple hours with us. My name is Narina McKeejian. I'm the Chair, Assistant Vice President of the Los Angeles Regional Consortium. And I just want to take a few minutes and take this opportunity to welcome you and thank you as our college faculty, administrators, staff, industry partners, LAEDC, Centers of Excellence, Luke Meyer, for your dedication to our regional project. Your presence and expertise are invaluable assets to our career and technical education programs, as well as our colleges across the region. Furthermore, I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Young for his exemplary leadership. In a remarkable brief period, our virtual and executive assistant regional project has established a robust groundwork to adequately prepare our students for the future workforce. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our amazing college partner faculty and deans from Compton College, Long Beach, LA Mission, SMC, West LA College, who have wholeheartedly committed to this short-term project, actively participating in curriculum development, and contributed also to the roundtable discussion for today. So just really quickly, LARC is, of course, a consortium of LA19's community colleges, and we work collectively to deliver on a promise that California community colleges are accessible and affordable to all who seek opportunities to realize a better future. We collaborate with K-12 partners, high road employers, and priority industry sectors to align impactful curriculum and workforce development training programs, creating seamless pathways for college and career readiness. Our mission is to bridge the gap between LA's workforce and employers fueling our cutting-edge economy. Our objective is to address the skills gap by increasing the availability of well-trained, skilled workforce in LA County. This will not only close the supply and demand gap, but it will also increase economic and social mobility for all of our students and residents within our communities. So we appreciate your dedication and commitment, and we know that by joining forces, we can cultivate a dynamic learning environment that equips our students to emerge as leaders and innovators in the workforce. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. McKeejian. Next, I want to introduce Jermaine Hampton, the Vice President of Workforce Development and Special Projects at LAEDC. Jermaine.
Hello all, and good morning. Great to see you all. And so just want to be really brief and just say thank you to all of the educators that are on the call today across all of the colleges, and a big thank you obviously to the Los Angeles Regional Consortium for the partnership. And so here at LADC, really our mission is reinventing our economy to collaboratively advance growth and prosperity for all. And so we engage really in inclusive economic development across all 88 cities and all unincorporated areas here in the region. And so one of our major pillars within our 5-pillar approach to economic development is obviously workforce development, but that also is inclusive of research, industry cluster development, business assistance, foreign direct investment as well. And so we really leverage those 5 pillars to help drive and mobilize the economy here in LA County. And so with that being said, this type of work, developing those equitable talent pipelines is a huge thing. And one thing really just to point out is we're suffering some population decline here in LA County. And I'm sure that our researchers that are on today may get into that a little bit, because this could be one of many possible solutions to kind of curving some of that population decline. And not only population decline, but in addition to that, students that we are educating whom are leaving and going to other states and other counties, even in California. So these are all things that we look at, but we want to also be really proactive in finding solutions so that we can actually help uplift the region so that we can curve some of these types of things. So again, thank you all. And so looking forward to a vibrant conversation today.
Great. Thank you, Jermaine. So next, we're going to go to Justin L. Adams, PhD, who's a senior economist at the Institute for Applied Economics at LAEDC, who will provide some demand data around the virtual and executive administrative assistant space. Justin, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks. So good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Adams. I'm senior economist at LAEDC's Institute for Applied Economics. So in my presentation, I'll first walk through some occupation-specific data for the two occupations that comprise virtual and executive assistants. So next slide. So these consist of SOC code 436011, which is executive secretaries and executive administrative assistants, and then SOC code 43-6014, which are secretaries and administrative assistants. Later in the presentation, we'll cover job posting data with a particular emphasis on remote and hybrid positions. So next slide, please. Okay, so again, so this is occupation data. So it's the two SOC codes that I just mentioned, and those encompass in-person, hybrid, and remote positions. Together, those two occupations employed more than 65,000 people in LA County in 2022. You can see that there has been a decline over time since 2012, and really not surprising, you see a drop off in 2020 with COVID. That impacted all companies everywhere. So that drop isn't really surprising. But you start to see a bit of an uptick in 2022. And so we'll see if that continues into next year. Next slide, please. Okay. As you would expect, these two occupations are employed across a wide range of industries. Every type of company, every type of industry needs these positions. In 2022, the largest industry the industry with the largest demand was government. That includes local hospitals, that includes schools. So it's not just government agencies or organizations. The next largest industries are professional, scientific, and technical services, and healthcare and social assistance. And these three industries were responsible for more than 40% of employment in 2022. Okay, next slide, please. As far as average annual pay, so both occupations pay a living wage, with secretaries and administrative assistants coming in at just over $50,000 a year. Executive secretaries and executive administrative assistants have a higher average annual pay at $76,000. That's not entirely surprising because there's a kind of a tenure aspect to it. Usually you're not hired immediately into executive secretary and executive administrative assistant positions. You kind of move up the chain over time. But these salaries compare to the average salary in LA County, which was about $83,000 in 2022. Next slide. Real wage growth. So we've seen some divergence over the last 10 years. Secretaries and administrative assistants saw their real wages grow. So that's wages controlling for inflation by just under 1%, so about 1% over the past 10 years. And then by contrast, executive secretaries saw their real wages fall by just over 4%. Okay, and age breakdown. So we have a wide variety of ages as well. The largest age segment for both of these occupations is the 45 to 54 age segment, which made up not quite a quarter, about 23% of total employment. And then you can see that that 35 to 44 was about 20%, 55 to 64 was about 22%. So relatively even distribution across those three ages, but 25 to 34, 16.8%. Okay, so looking at things by race and ethnicity, white workers make up about 46%. So they are the largest segment, but they're not a majority. We see that Hispanic and Latino workers comprise 35%, Asian workers at 9.4%, and Black workers at 6.5%. I'd say this is relatively consistent with other industry, with other race and ethnicity breakdowns for other industries. So gender breakdown, primarily female, almost 95%. Okay, and then where are these jobs? Where are people being employed? And it's all over the county, as you would expect, because again, these are positions that can work, they're needed in every company, in every industry. So it's wherever companies and industries are located. But you see that 11 of the top 20 zip codes. So this map shows hotspots by zip code. 11 of the top 20 appear in the city of LA. But other cities that we see include Winnetka, El Segundo, Burbank, Monrovia, Beverly Hills, Woodland Hills, Santa Fe Springs, and Valencia. Okay, forecasted employment. So looking out through 2034, you see a gradual decline. It's actually pretty slight. So starting at 64,000, about 500 in 2023, down to just under 61,000 in 2034. And you see that the percentage of executive secretaries compared to secretaries and administrative assistants, that percentage is relatively stable. It's going to decrease slightly. I don't know that there's too much to read into this. If you look at, this is to Jermaine's point, if you look at projections of population in LA County, we're expected to decline through to 2034. So just as an example, 2034, LA County is expected to have about 9.5 million residents, and that is down from, I think we're at 9.8 today, and we were at 10.2 million in 2018. So I don't think that this kind of decline is tied to the to these occupations per se. It just might be part of just a general decline for the region as a whole. Next slide. Okay, so now we jump into job postings. So with these job postings, you can actually get a little more information on hybrid and remote positions because you can look at the requirements that are included in the job postings. So if you look at job postings, you see fluctuation, a big drop in 2020. Again, not surprising given COVID and pretty much the shutdown of the county and the state economy for a couple of months. But then things popped back up in 2021 and 2022. Some softening in 2023, and it's unclear if that's driven by high interest rates and, you know, just a kind of a concern that the economy might be starting to cool because of high inflation and then high interest rates. If you look at the percentage of occupations that include a hybrid or remote requirement, you see an increase from 2019, where there were 597 postings, to 2022, where there were just over 1,900 postings. And then, but if you look at the share of total job postings with a hybrid or remote requirement, they increased from 2% in 2019 to about 7.5% in 2023. So, so you actually are seeing more over time, as you would expect, especially given the pandemic, an increase in postings with a hybrid or remote requirement. Now, I should clarify this chart though just a little bit, because it can be a little misleading. So I have hybrid and remote versus other. So other could include job postings that have an in-person requirement, and they can also include postings that don't specify. If you look at the postings that specify an in-person requirement, they're roughly the same, a little bit more than the hybrid and remote. So basically, what I'm saying is most of these positions don't particularly specify whether it's in-person or hybrid and remote. So there could be a lot more positions that are actually hybrid or remote, but they're just not specified in the postings. Okay, next slide, please. And give me a second because my Zoom, there we go. Okay. So now I do some comparisons between all postings and then the hybrid and remote postings. So here we're looking at specialized skills across the two to see if we can tease out any differences. And really, you're seeing a lot of the same specialized skills, whether it's specified as hybrid or remote or not specified at all. You see administrative support requirements, travel arrangements, the ability to set up expense reports, do data entry, accounting is always a big one. The differences that you see, so for all postings, you kind of see more of the in-person aspect to it. So office supply management, office equipment. But those are really the main differences. And next slide, please. So this comparison shows software skills. And again, you see some very similar requirements across. So the Microsoft suite is very important. The ability to manipulate spreadsheets, accounting software, so QuickBooks, Microsoft Access. So we're talking databases, presentation software, Google Workspace. So very similar across. Next slide, please. Okay, education breakdown. So basically for these positions, so this shows again all postings on the left, hybrid and remote postings on the right. The numbers are slightly different, but generally the same. For these positions, they generally require at least a high school diploma or a GED. The largest segment generally has a bachelor's degree. And I will say that hybrid and remote postings tend to rely slightly more on bachelor's degrees and less on high school diplomas and GEDs. Okay, next slide. So as we've seen, there are requirements for this position over all types of jobs, all types of industries. So it's not surprising that the advertised salary is all over, depending on the job and industry. So there's a wide distribution of jobs, of salaries across these positions, whether they are all postings or hybrid or remote. But the one difference I was able to tease out, if you look at all job postings, about 44% of them are advertised for less than $40,000 a year. But for hybrid and remote postings, only 27.7% are advertised for less, so less than 40,000 a year. So so it would seem that there is more expected of the hybrid and remote postings, so the virtual postings. Next slide. And these are some of the top companies that are posting. And the difficulty here is that most of these firms are staffing agencies. So Elevance Health, that used to be Anthem, so that's a healthcare company, but Robert Half, Randstad, Software Resources, Apple One, Cynet Systems, Rose Agency, and I think J.R. Berry Search Group. Those are all staffing agencies. So it's kind of hard to see what specific industries they are going to cater to, although Cynet Systems, I think, is more IT, and Software Resources is as well. So it would seem that generally for this type of occupation, you would expect, it seems like the word of the day is flexibility, because that's what these staffing companies provide. Flexibility. We can provide a number of employees with a wide variety of skills to a wide variety of companies. And but it's hard to get much more detail data beyond that, just given that they are staffing companies. But I believe that is my last chart. We had a lot of data, so I had to fly through it. Oh, well, my takeaways. Okay, so executive secretaries and executive administrative assistants and secretaries and administrative assistants employed across a wide range of industries. They receive a living wage, wide variety of ages and races and ethnicities. Occupations are expected to decline slightly in number, but again, that seems like it's in line with general population trends for LA County. The share of job postings made with a hybrid or remote requirement is increasing, and the skills seem fairly similar, whether they're software or specialized skills, but fairly similar across hybrid and remote postings versus in office or the other postings. And with that, I will hand it back.
Great, thank you, Justin. So next, we're going to go to Luke Meyer, who is from the LA Center of Excellence for Labor Market Research, who will provide some supply data around the space. Luke, floor is yours.
Thanks, Jared, and thanks, Justin. That was great. It's challenging trying to separate out, traditional roles as we know it in person and virtual roles. So this is definitely an emerging area. And I just have to say, never have I ever been in a meeting with so many Ruth Emanuels. I see the OG Ruth right there. If only we had a virtual assistant to change the names, that would be amazing. All right,
will the real Ruth Emanuel please stand up? That's me.
Yeah, no kidding. So I apologize if some of this is a little bit redundant with what Justin presented, but worst case scenario is we corroborate our findings together. But I really want to focus on the education program. So Alicia, thank you. We'll look in LA, and as I was doing this, I started thinking, okay, we serve LA. That's what our office does at the Center of Excellence. But then thinking about remote work, why not look at the state? Why not look at the nation? Those are questions to think about. So we'll look at the community colleges with programs. We'll look at some other post-secondary institutions. And then we looked at job postings just from the last year, though. So it's a little bit different than Justin looked back further and had a larger time frame. So if we can go to the next slide, let's get into it. So this is a little bit redundant, but the questions that we're trying to answer here are, how many jobs are there for virtual and executive administrative assistants? And then we're looking at those educational training providers and other things. So let's go to the next slide. That's just the traditional LMI right there. It's pretty much in line with what Justin was presenting, how many jobs there are. I think he had 65,000. This is a little bit more, but what portion of those work remote, what portion work hybrid is a question that, there aren't data sources to keep up with that. So we look to job postings a lot. If you can go to the next slide. All right, so this is really what we're focused on here, is which educational institutions are providing training for virtual and executive administrative assistants. Next slide. So at the community colleges, we use the top code you see there, 0514, for office technology and office computer applications. There are all kinds of programs related to, sometimes we refer to that as business information worker or admin assistant. There's some focus on Word data entry, word processing, other type things. So if we look at the awards, this is actually for LA and Orange County, because again, was grappling with that issue of what geography do we focus mostly on. So about 1,000 awards, which is certificates and degrees over the last 3 years on average for those programs. Next slide. And this just shows where the institutions that have these programs. So one of the questions that I was grappling with as we, this project moves forward, is it to start new programs focused on training for these professionals for virtual assistants, or can we just modify some curriculum that already exists? Because as Justin was showing with the job postings, those skills required in the in-person jobs versus the virtual jobs are somewhat similar. So are there just some components that can be added to familiarity with Zoom, with Calendly, with other software platforms that could really help. Next slide. So how many of these programs are focused specifically on virtual training. Next slide. So currently, there are 4 of the community colleges that have programs, and I'll show you the titles next after this. But in LA, we have Long Beach City College, down in Orange County, Santa Ana, and then one in the Inland Empire and one in Greater Sacramento. And I just want to note that there are 4 community colleges that had virtual programs that have since been deactivated. So that's Columbia College, Sacramento City, Sierra College, and then Southwestern College. Some of those were approved as early as 2010 up through 2018 and are currently inactive. So it might be worth reaching out to some of those colleges to see what, was it low enrollment? What was it that discontinued the program? But those 4 colleges listed there have active programs. Next slide. This is the program titles for those colleges. So Long Beach City College has virtual support. They offer a degree and a certificate that was just approved. American River College has the virtual administrative professional, virtual office professional, dating back to 2013, College of the Desert, business remote worker, and BIW, or business information worker, remote office support and technology. So that gives you an idea of what these colleges are calling these. And because they offer other programs under the same top code that are designed for in-person or sort of the traditional role, it is hard to separate out, well, how many awards are being issued for these virtual programs versus others. So that's the community colleges in a nutshell. Next slide, please. We'll look at some other post-secondary institutions. So there isn't a zip code for that specific virtual admin executive assistant, but there are some interesting programs. Actually, I'm going to put some links in the chat. I just want you guys to see real quick here. There is one. This is from Ed2Go, which I believe is owned by Cengage. I remember when I was teaching, Cengage provided the textbook and other things, but they have a certified virtual assistant program for $3,000. Those are 3 different institutions offering them. And if you click on all those, you'll notice they're all the same. So there's LA City College Extension, there's Cal State Fullerton, and just to prove the point, there's one at Western Colorado University. And yeah, they have their curriculum all there. It's $3,000. So I think the community colleges can definitely do a lot better for this, but it's open enrollment, it's self-paced, but they're all fee-based. Next slide. All right, so we did our own job posting analysis as well. This is just over the last 12 months. So we start big and then funnel down, looking at the job postings for those 2 occupations. Just over 4,000 indicated remote employment. And of those throughout the state, 1,000 of those were in LA County. And then even more refined, we look specifically for the job title related to virtual assistant. Next slide. So of those 1,000 that were the remote jobs in LA, for those 2 occupations, the median advertised salary was just over $52,000 annually. And a very small portion of those were looking for entry-level workers. I think when they are hiring someone remotely, they want an experienced professional, but there's also a large degree of postings that don't list the experience requirement that they're looking for. And again, we found similar employers posting, a lot of staffing agencies, Northrop Grumman there, unfortunately, is laying off a lot of workers very soon in Redondo Beach. The skills listed there: admin support, travel arrangements, data entry, invoicing, and expense reports. Next slide. Now we're just looking at those that match the job title that we were looking at, which is for virtual assistant. So 322 postings we identified throughout the state with that very specific job title. The median duration for these was 26 days, which is 3 days shorter than the average for the region. So that could suggest that these are getting filled quicker. than the average posting. So you see the vast majority are for virtual assistants, the personal virtual assistants, virtual admin assistants, virtual office managers, a little bit higher level, and then the virtual executive assistants. Next. All right, so from those, you see the employers there. We got Chevron. There are some other staffing agencies, and oddly enough, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security popped up. You can see the skills that they're requesting there with admin support, Zoom, travel arrangements, data entry, project management, and the median advertised salary for these that specified virtual in the job title, about $10,000 higher than the others per year. And again, a very low portion we're looking for entry-level workers. So ideally, they're looking for someone with experience in the field or virtually. Next. All right, so we also just included a few job posting samples just so we could look at them. This is just a summary, so you can see the duties there to provide admin support, manage calendars, schedule appointments, coordinate meetings, take phone calls, emails, update records, assist with project management and travel. And you can see some of the qualifications they're looking at. The Microsoft Office suite is essential to all of these positions. And then obviously communication and organization is important. Next one, we'll just go through so we can see some of these. Responding to emails, calls, everything that you would expect to see. And this also specified creating presentations. Experience with word processing and spreadsheets is also important. And you can see the salary is quite a range there depending upon who they find. Next. And then here's a virtual admin assistant, same looking at duties, much lower salary put in here, but QuickBooks suggests something related to accounting. So yeah, there are postings out there that can be filled. And I wanted to share one last thing. As you know, our region is heavily focused on equity. And the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis recently published some research on working from home and on workers with a disability. And basically through the pandemic and other things, it has sort of narrowed existing labor market gaps between workers with a disability and workers without a disability. So I'll put that in the chat. Let's see. I think that is all. Alicia, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So if anybody has questions about these, you feel free to reach out to me anytime, but I will stop there and send it back to you. I just put that link in the chat as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Luke. So now we're going to go to our roundtable industry discussion. I just want to lay out a couple of ground rules before we get into it. Please mute yourself throughout the discussion. If you do have any questions, you can either hold on to them and wait for the Q&A, or you can submit them through the chat box, and then we can call on you after the roundtable discussion's over. We're going to try and dedicate around 15 to 20 minutes of discussion per topic. And then, as mentioned, we will end with a Q&A. So want to encourage all of you to really think about questions that you have, anything that you want to get input on from these employers. We have a really great set of employers here joining us today. And so really want to make sure that you guys all take advantage of the opportunity. So without further ado, I'll introduce our incredible employers. So first, we have Jess Robles. And if you could all just give a wave real quick when I say your name so everyone can see you. Jess is an executive assistant at Amazon Web Services, where she supports 3 senior leaders within the AWS training and certification organization. She joined Amazon after 23 years of active duty military service, where she served in the U.S. Air Force, supporting 4-star generals as an enlisted aide. Thank you, Jess. Next, we have Tatiana Messersmith. Tatiana is the talent acquisition lead for campus relations at Prime Healthcare. She oversees campus relationships, event strategy, and university programs for both California and Nevada. Previously, she worked as a university recruiter in both the tech and education sectors and has a passion for connecting college students with career opportunities. Thank you, Tatiana. Next, we have Christine Hanley. Hi, Christine. Christine is the manager of talent acquisition for the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank, where she leads a team of talent acquisition specialists to bring in top talent for the organization. She has over 25 years of experience in talent acquisition, having worked at organizations such as Pacific Gas and Electric, Starbucks, and Allianz of America. And last but not least, we have China Salunga. China, give us a wave. Thank you. China is a talent acquisition recruiter at United Airlines, where she supports the LAX and SFO hubs. She's also the director of the U Impact LAX chapter, which is a United business resource group dedicated to diversity, culture, and positively providing awareness to United's employees and the communities it serves. So that's our panel. We're really excited to have you all here. I'm going to hand it off to Jose Pelayo and Alicia Neen, who will be leading the roundtable discussion. The floor is yours, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jared. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to everyone. It's a big pleasure to have such a esteemed panelist representing diverse industries, which is very key based on the data that was captured. And as we dive into the conversation of the state of the industry and core competencies, I would like to start by kind of getting each of your feedback based on your respective experiences. And I'd like to begin with Jess. As Jared mentioned, your role supporting, I think, 4 actually senior leaders within AWS. Could you provide your feedback on the current state and emerging trends of the industry? Jess,
I am currently supporting 4. We just onboarded a 4th executive on my team, and we're also in the process of hiring another EA to support that individual. So in the meantime, I am supporting 4. It's fun, keeps me on my toes, and I enjoy every minute of it. So some of the emerging trends within the EA industry. So for me, the most prolific at the moment is AI. Obviously, it's the most trendy for everybody. And I think a lot of people are maybe under the impression that AI could eventually take over for the EA space. But there's a human component within this role that I don't know that it can be duplicated in AI. There's certain things that the way we connect with our leaders as EAs that is organic and human, and AI is not going to be able to do that. And so that's a big one. But with that AI, we can utilize it to make ourselves more efficient and more effective at communicating, at organizing our day, so that we can be more available to our leaders that we support and be there for their to support their the alignment of their goals and their initiatives. So the AI, we can use it as a good tool and a resource, and so it's just a trendy topic right now.
No, thank you so much, Jess. Appreciate that. I would like to segue it to Tatiana and kind of hear your inputs on the healthcare industry and what are some of the emerging trends.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, one, thank you all so much for sharing all of that data and research. I thought it was so interesting to see the economic trends behind it. I wanted to ask, like, what do you think is the job people should go for next? Just looking at the economy and the data. So that's awesome. I think within healthcare, I think something, I'm relatively new to the world of healthcare, so I've been learning a lot about it in the last 2 months. And I think some of the trends with this, I think, especially in the healthcare spaces, there's just such a focus on confidentiality and security. I've been amazed at all of the blockers and the different things that I can't necessarily access on my work computer, or all of the different steps I need to take to be able to log into all of the VPNs and all of the systems. And so I think for our EAs and for our administrative assistants, I think it's a big deal to be able to understand how can you operate within these different spaces? How can you make sure you're being secure when you're inviting internal and external people? I think that's a big thing for us, and a big thing that we're kind of trying to figure out the best way to teach about those things internally and how to educate our teams about that. I think also something that, for us, we have a mix of people who are remote and who are on site. And so kind of thinking in the university recruiting space, I think, especially as, we saw some of it, a lot of the opportunities aren't necessarily entry level. I think kind of being willing to discuss with students, maybe your first role might not be remote, but that's something you can work up to. And I think that's kind of something that I'm trying to discuss with students as I'm at career fairs and at things like that. So, so those are kind of 2 things that stick out to me. But from what was shared, I I can definitely understand. I know as a recruiter, as the economy goes down, sometimes opportunities can be limited. And so I know we see that sometimes in other support fields too. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tatiana. Great points that you made there. I kind of want to hear Christine's perspective with your vast experience. So the floor is yours, Christine.
Great, thanks. And thanks for inviting me. And I too was really intrigued by all the data and the trends. So that was really helpful. So I'll just kind of piggyback on a couple things that were said. I think Jess mentioned that she's supporting multiple leaders. So I'm seeing a lot more of that. I think as companies are starting to consolidate and downsize, I see the EAs having to really stretch to support more leaders. I know it's the case in our organization. And I also too agree with the whole point around security and privacy. I know we're very concerned about that at our organization, and something that's very important for virtual and executive assistants to help protect protect privacy. So that's something we definitely are seeing as such a change. And then also, I think a lot of organizations, including ours, are they're starting to look more for early career. So traditionally, we've tended to hire executive assistants, that have a little bit more experience, but I'm seeing there's more of a focus to try to grow talent. So I think we'll probably see a lot more of those changes, hopefully, which could be a good change actually to help bring people into the organization and help grow them. So.
Thank you, Christine. Appreciate that. China, the floor is yours if you have any feedback.
Hey everyone, and thanks again for having us here. Some of the things, so supporting our hubs here, we're very operational. We are airline, and so a lot of our positions with the executive administration, the admins, they are on site, more for a corporate world, and that scope. There might be some availabilities for the hybrid, but a lot of the emerging trends that are here locally are our community involvement. That's huge for ours, just getting to understand the culture that communities that we are involved with locally here. And just trying to get out there. We're very customer facing positions. So whether it's internal, external, we really try to get our brand out there, whether it's social media, events with the communities, or just the customer feedback is huge.
Thank you, China. And I like to kind of keep it there. I know maybe this would be a lightning round, maybe 1 minute, 2 minute remark. A few of you touched base on this, but any foundational skills that may include either social media, Microsoft Office, or anything that wasn't named, as well as any emerging technologies. I know Tatiana mentioned data privacy, either security knowledge, that's necessary and will remain important within this industry. So China, love to hear. I know you kind of touched base on that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So our roles here for the hubs here in Los Angeles are entry level. We are our preferred is with a bachelor degrees, but our recommended is with the high school diploma. So a lot of the Outlook, the Microsoft suite is huge. Communication skills, that's huge. And then more of the customer facing and having that ability to just have that human factor in yourself to connect with everyone that you're in touch with.
Thank you for that. And then I'll go right to Christine to kind of add anything that China might have not mentioned.
Yeah, a couple things too, like data is a huge thing. And so folks that have any kind of data gathering or like Tableau experience, and it is super helpful to have that skill. And then just from a competency perspective, anything that people can learn about influence without authority. So, because that's a huge part of this job, you're working with executives and being able to have the confidence to, to kind of push back and be able to move some of your ideas forward would be helpful, along with project management skills. We see that it's becoming more and more critical with these roles.
Thank you, Christine. And then Tatiana, I know you mentioned a bit about data privacy, but anything else, whether it be social media platforms, Microsoft Office, or anything else that we might mention that might remain relevant or necessary to kind of succeed in this role?
Yeah, I think something that comes to mind for me is really the importance of like written communication, making sure that you can create really solid emails, follow-up communications, PowerPoint presentations. Because there may be times where RAs are asked to draft things for executives or asked to write things on their behalf. And so I think writing is a big one. And then as well, a big aspect is like booking travel and being able to use kind of the various software systems within that, and then being able to follow up with people when things go wrong, right? So a willingness to kind of dive into things that may feel kind of tricky or overwhelming, right? If you're needing to book travel for a large amount of people, and then if things get canceled or someone can't show up. So really strong communication, both written and then also during crisis, I think can be helpful.
Thank you, Tatiana. And I'd like to kind of finalize with Jess and your unique perspective on any, again, proficiency that are required with social media, Microsoft Office, or any emerging technologies like data privacy or security knowledges that are relevant.
Yes, everything that everyone has said, the panelists have said before me, all of that, and the strong strategic communication piece, a confidence in that strategic communication, and a strong proficiency in social media, because the way what Tatiana mentioned is we are speaking at times on behalf of our executives, and we're drafting posts that they will make to their organization social media accounts. And it has to be aligned with their views and their goals. And overall, as a whole, for us, Amazon as a whole, it has to be aligned with all of their, goals and initiatives. And so we have to be 100% aligned in the strategic communication that we put out as executive assistants, because it's super important how, the way that we represent our executives. And although it's they proofread it, we still have to provide that draft. So that's important. So yes, social media proficiency, super important. And, every organization has its own products and resources, Work Docs, Google Docs, whatever that may be, but all of those things are important. And we could definitely dive into that in another discussion.
Thank you, panelists. So prior to our meeting, you guys were shared a document that the community colleges have been working very hard. And thank you for your dedication, community colleges, on creating the curriculum. So we'd love to kind of go to Tatiana with your oversight of the campus relationships and university programs to kind of hear your feedback on any missing or proposed curriculum that would enhance employability and effectiveness on the virtual assistant position. So based on what you saw, any feedback that you would give the faculty and deans here?
Yeah, definitely. I had a chance to review it, and I definitely, I think these learning outcomes all are very good and spot on. I know that Jess mentioned AI. That was something that as well our corporate recruiters brought up with me is, focus on kind of knowing how to use AI to help you streamline your work. So that could potentially be something that could be added in here. I know as well there are times where certifications aren't always required, like specific certifications, but sometimes they can be a nice to have. So certified professional secretary certification, certified administrative professional certification, Microsoft Office specialist certification. So different things like that could be helpful to kind of either have an addition or to recommend to students as an add-on, or maybe an opportunity to get experience or things like that. I saw the incorporating ergonomic workspace design. I thought that was interesting. I wasn't sure if that would be for their own personal at-home office or for the people that they're helping to support. That was a little uncertain to me. But I think obviously I think that's a helpful thing to teach students if they are going to be working remotely. I know for me, when I do work from home, right now, I'm wow, my back hurts. I must not be sitting well. And so for administrative professionals who are going to be doing this a lot, teaching them how to have good health and well-being while you are working remotely, I think is helpful. And something else that came to mind for me, and this is just from my own social media algorithm, I know that I've seen a lot of courses on how to be a virtual assistant for influencers or for different things like that. And so I think it could be helpful in the curriculum to kind of help separate out what exactly this means. Are we referring to like the virtual assistant that people are saying, oh, you can like hit up an influencer, you can run their social media. Are we talking about being a remote? So potentially having opportunities where you kind of discuss the differences and how those differentiate and operate, because obviously the social media route's not always like guaranteed, and we don't necessarily always know like how legitimate those like courses are or whatever. So those are something that came to mind for me.
No, that's great. And I'm sure the faculty and deans will have more questions towards the latter part of our presentation. I know Dr. Adormatis, if you can, will allow for questions roughly around 12:30, but kind of want to segue it to China. China, I know your current experience as an HR recruiter, you probably also have some great feedback suggesting anything that you might feel would be beneficial for the faculty and deans to know.
Absolutely. Just tagging on to the previous with the ergonomics and workspace. That is our #1 priority with United is safety. So that's huge on our level 2, your wellness checks, just the ergonomics event. But so a lot of times we're just now having, for example, we're just gonna go real time now. I'm working with our executive admin now. A lot of the metrics that we reach our goals with, they're hugely involved. So one of the things that they really are aligned with our executive admin is setting up the whole event. It's huge. When they celebrate these events, they have their collaterals where it's not just the admin work. Now they're actually out there with all the vendors trying to get everything together. And I think that's the huge aspect to them is the relationships with all the other vendors, preparing themselves because our VPs do fly down from corporate. So there's a lot of things that are intel for creating, just throwing it out there just because it's different hats that these executive admins are collaborating with others. But that's another huge thing was part of project management is dealing with these issues and having to deal with them, trying to get everyone here on time because it's different vendors. The food, the event is just huge. And then because we are at the airport of Lawa, they oversee. So every time we need a permit, all those things, they need to be aligned on top of what they already do is huge just to have those scopes of project management tying into their actual job duties.
Thank you, China, for that perspective. I appreciate that. Jess, any input on any critical skills or knowledge areas that we're missing on the curriculum that you think might be more effective in order to employ some of these students graduating?
Yes. So I think one of a big component of my role is space administration. And I see that a lot in executive assistant roles is they manage the space administration for their organization, which means, you know, you're assigning desk space or reassigning somebody from one building to another. If somebody moves to a new location, you have to reassign their location, or if they're in an agile desk, you give them an assigned desk. If they need ergonomic equipment at their desk, you have to facilitate the exception to policy to be able to have an assigned desk so they could have, so all of those things is a major part of my role as an executive assistant. And it's also in other job listings that I've seen for EAs. So that's maybe something that can be added. And then also, a way to articulate and stress to students the importance of operating within ambiguity, because a lot of our role is, you know, you just kind of hit the ground running and you make it happen. You have to anticipate your executive's needs and you can't sit around and wait for them to give you guidance because they don't have time for that. And so I think it's giving, you know, having a strong foundation with the curriculum so that they're confident and they can make, you know, do bias for action and make decisions, you know, quickly, and they don't have to wait for their executive's permission to make a decision. And so I think that is, if there's a way that you could incorporate that, I know most of that is intrinsic, but, you know, so a way to just stress the importance of ambiguity within this role and operating with integrity and discretion. So those are all really important qualities to have as an EA. And if there's a way that you can build that and integrate that into the curriculum, that would make for a really, really solid EA.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate those crucial components that you mentioned. Christine, that you lead a team of acquisition specialists. Curious to hear your thoughts. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of our security protocols, I wasn't able to open up the document. But I really loved hearing Jess talk about what makes a good executive assistant, because when we recruit for them, those are the things that we're trying to figure out with the candidate. Can they work with a lot of ambiguity? Can they have the confidence to be able to make decisions? Because those are, those are the things that our leaders are looking for in these folks. And so to her point, any kind of curriculum you could develop around that would be really helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you, Christine, for giving the perspective of what you feel would be important to incorporate. I know we have a few hands raised, so I just kind of, in essence of time, want to segue through the remaining questions. And then we will allow for panel discussion directly from our attendees around 12:30. So if you want, feel free to put the question in the chat, or we can just kind of wait till the 12:30, and then you can have the opportunity to engage directly with the panelists. But continuing our conversation, I'd actually like to introduce my colleague, Alicia, who will be now moderating the second portion of the discussion. So Alicia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose. Appreciate it. So I know, Tatiana, you had kind of talked about a little bit about the certifications. So I'm just curious, what training or credentials or any kind of certifications are in high demand right now within the industry that you can maybe elaborate more about? I think that would be appreciated. So, Tatiana, if you wanted to kind of speak on that.
Yeah, for sure. So for our roles, certifications are a plus. They're not always required. They're just kind of a nice to have, but some of the ones that could be nice to have would be the Certified Administrative Professional, the Certified Professional Secretary, and the Microsoft Office Specialist. Those are three that my team kind of shared with me that they look out for. Generally, our roles require at least a high school diploma. Some of our positions do require a bachelor's degree. So that is something to keep in mind as well. But those are just some of the ones that my team shared with me that generally we do look for when we're hiring on our team. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Christine, would love to hear your take on that as well.
Yeah, very close to what Tatiana shared. So we don't require a bachelor's degree. It's preferred. So someone with a high school diploma is fine. Any of the certifications in Microsoft Office, or if they're, again, all of these things are nice to have. So anything that relates to project management would also be helpful, for our roles. But again, great to have, but not required.
Got it. Thank you. China, do you have any feedback on that as well?
No, I agree. The same with Tatiana and Christine. Good to have, but it's not required. But it's especially with the project management here in our hubs is huge. So that's more of the experience is what is huge that we're looking for.
Got it. Thank you. And then Jess, what about for you?
I think the most bang for your buck is a project management certification for this role in my experience. I have two bachelor's degrees, one in hospitality management and logistics management, and Amazon didn't care. It wasn't a requirement for me to be hired onto this role. So project management for sure though.
Okay, that makes sense. And then kind of just along with certifications. So do industry professionals prefer candidates with certifications, or would maybe like credit courses listed on the resume over non-credit courses? Would that matter sense? And then we can go back with Jess just to kind of hear more elaboration on that.
So in my personal experience, I don't know that it's a preference. For these roles, I look at it as a personality based, a lot of it, because you have to vibe with your executive that you're supporting. And I think if you have a candidate who holds a certification but is not a good fit personality wise with the executive, and then you have a candidate who is a good fit personality wise but doesn't have the certification, they're probably going to get the role because I think of it like you're you're interviewing from both sides, and you're trying to see if you guys are going to have a good working relationship and it's going to be cohesive, because you are working together a lot, even if it's virtually.
No,
So
that
I-
completely.
Yeah, so I would
Sorry.
say it's not necessarily a preference. I don't think that they would have a preference. I think it's more personality based.
Okay, that makes sense. Trina, do you have any thoughts on that?
Hi, sorry. Just adding to the, as, when we do screen, candidates that are applying for these positions for, executive, it is a good thing to have. But we usually have our pre-screening questions out there that we really scope into that. So answering those, and then when we actually do dig deep into their resumes, their profiles, and if they have those certifications, definitely it's a huge plus, but it's not necessarily needed.
Thank you. Tatiana, do you have any feedback or anything for that?
Yeah, I know something that we can ask our EAs and administrative assistants to provide in the process is a work sample. So in terms of a certification, that might not necessarily be necessary, but it could be a good way to get these work samples for the interviews that are needed. It could potentially be the assignments that they're doing during the certification courses. But again, like everyone said, it's a nice to have, not a requirement, but we do ask for like written work samples, examples of writing. I think there's a lot of opportunities for students on campus to get experience working in administrative types of roles, working, front desk and offices, things like that. So really kind of, there could be opportunities to be able to partner with different offices on campus to get students those like hands-on opportunities in this area. Would be kind of things that in my mind may stick out stronger than a certification if that's not possible or desired by the student.
Great, thank you so much for that. And Christine, do you have any feedback for that as well?
Yeah, I'll just add, kind of piggybacking on Jess, and I find honestly the executive assistant roles are one of the hardest to recruit for because of that kind of personality match. It is almost like a dating thing. You have to have like a really good match for that executive assistant with the leader. But in terms of, the certifications are great. I think seeing those on the resume gets them in the door. And then the rest of that is dependent on the interview and how well we view they think that they're going to mesh with the executive. So, but again, I think it's important. It'd be helpful to see that on the resume. I think it could just, move them up, could get them an interview.
That makes sense. And I know from a lot of the advisories that we've heard from different employers, they talk a lot about soft skills and the importance of it. So just trying to understand what specific soft skills are particularly important for success, or important soft skills that you're looking for in a candidate. Let's go with Jess. Would you mind kind of elaborating on that?
Yes. No, I don't mind. Soft skills are super important in this role. And so a lot of them that we look for, because I sit on the hiring as a part of the hiring process for our team. We look for huge, strong organizational management skills. We look for just being organized. That's like the number one. If you cannot be organized in this role, you are going to fail. Time management skills, communication and decision-making abilities, being a problem solver. That means you see something and you don't have to sit around and wait for somebody to tell you that there's a problem. You just see the problem. You maybe come up with a solution, or maybe you have an idea for something and you want to bounce it off of your exec's head, or maybe you want to bring it to your team of EAs to see if you want to collaborate to improve upon the idea for improvement. But you should always be in a state of constant improvement and just problem solving. And then understanding the priorities that your organization has and how to operate within those priorities so that you're not wasting anybody's time. So huge, those are all huge soft skills that you should have as an EA.
Those are all really valid soft skills. Tatiana, do you have any take on that for the soft skills as well?
Yeah, I agree with that. And one that I would like add on to, I think really important is just the like stakeholder management, just the ability to work kind of at all levels within and outside of a company. I think is one that I would add on to that. And then as well, RAs can also help with invoicing and kind of handling expense management and budgeting. So kind of a comfortability or familiarity with kind of working within budgets or being able to like kind of handle and balance those out too can be helpful. So it's not a soft skill, I guess that's a hard skill.
No, those are valid too. Thank you so much for sharing. China.
Hi, just adding on to the previous two, Jess and Tatiana. Those are huge. I just wanted to add in also with critical thinking, knowing how to pivot. If things aren't going where it's planned, how you have it set, and something there's a roadblocker, knowing how to pivot, critically thinking on the spot.
Great, that's also really valid too. Christine, do you have any specific soft skills that you look forward to when you're recruiting?
Yeah, just a couple to add, attention to detail. Somebody also that's good at being good at anticipating needs. So proactiveness is, I think, really important. We've talked about collaboration. Someone that can manage stress, knows how to take care of themselves, you know, not to get to the point where they're overwhelmed and stressed out. And then ability to be confidential too, because a lot of folks are, you know, dealing with very highly sensitive stuff. So those are, in addition to what everybody else said, I think important.
Thanks so much for that. And I know one of the things we also touch base on is like how big communication skills is such a really important aspect. So are there any strategies and communication skills that are essential for within the EA space to effectively manage, but not also that, but different time zones? So within either different time zone differences or client communications. I want to start off with Jess because I know you're in a different time zone, so I would love to hear your perspective.
Yes, I'm in New Jersey. For those of you who I didn't add that in my introduction. My executives are in San Diego, Seattle, and Houston. And so I work remotely from New Jersey. So I'm kind of like a virtual assistant, but I also fly out to wherever they are when they need assistance with offsites or anything like that. But I was hired to be fully remote. And then I transitioned to hybrid after we did our return to office policy changes. So some of the strategies and communication skills that I think are essential are attention to detail, huge. And it was a skill that I was able to transition over from my military service. And it has been such a amazing tool to have, attention to detail. Seeking out information when a request comes through is so if you have a person who is asking for a meeting that's in Japan, but you don't know that they're in Japan and they haven't let you know that, you need to make sure and verify that where they are so that you can align calendars in the most inclusive way possible. And we have tools available at our disposal to align, to basically put all the time zones that the attendees are into one little snapshot. And then it gives you suggestions for times that are inclusive to every attendee. And so there's so many resources available to ensure that you're keeping all those things taking all those things into consideration. And it's important because the second you forget and you have somebody who's in Australia and you have them on a call and it's 3 o'clock in the morning for them, they just feel excluded. And so then it's, you know, they feel like an afterthought, and you never want that for a customer. So.
No, that's really important. Thank you for sharing that. Tatiana, what about for you?
Did you say my name? Did you say Tatiana?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yes, I think time zones is a huge thing. Being able to like, I know I can even get mixed up with time zones when I'm scheduling interviews and all that. So being able to like keep that straight, have a good system for that. We use different communication. So I think being able to have kind of the discernment to know when is it right for an email, when is it right for a Microsoft Teams chat, when is it right to have an actual meeting in person. Those are some of the different things that we use, like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, things like that. And then also just like good calendar etiquette. So like an ability to keep things consistent, the way you format things, the way you provide reports and updates. I think those are big communication things too, like that show that you're well organized and have that attention to detail that just mentioned.
Thank you so much for sharing. Christine, do you have any insight on this as well?
In terms of communication, and this might be helpful for curriculum or something, you know, whether it's a Myers-Briggs or something where they can learn sort of how to tailor their communication depending on who they're talking to, you know, that could be helpful because they are working at all levels of the organization and different, so that could be helpful. I don't have a lot to offer in terms of the different time zones. We're pretty much, for the most part, Pacific Standard. So we do have meetings for some of our system folks, but yeah, that's what I'll say.
Thank you so much. Shannon?
Don't have quite a lot to add, but just with the reportings that we do with our corporate, because they are in Chicago, it's just ensuring that we're using the proper virtual tools and techniques, and then just being mindful of the time zones, and then just the patience that they will eventually respond to.
No, that's valid. Thank you so much for sharing. And then another question I kind of thought about was based on industry experience, is there any common weaknesses that virtual assistants face? And within that, how can the curriculum address these challenges to really better prepare the students? Let's start with Tatiana, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like specifically weaknesses or shortcomings that can happen. I think this may just be more so general to like a corporate space, but I know I'm bringing up stakeholder management a lot, but there's just so many different dynamics and hierarchies within a business. Sometimes you don't know what you're stepping into, what relationships you're stepping into, and that can feel really overwhelming or isolating. I think as well, being able to kind of prioritize in your day and like advocate for the leader. That may mean sometimes you have to say no to people that you never thought you'd have to say no to, or being comfortable saying, no, that's not right. This is actually what it is. So an ability to like advocate and speak up even when that feels daunting or maybe not right to do. And that was something that Christine kind of brought up earlier, like the ability to like lead with influence, right? I think those can be like growth areas for people, like really that clear communication is so key. And then as well, when people are virtual, something that can be hard is because people aren't seeing you all the time, they don't always know what you're doing. And so it can feel like you have a lack of presence or like you're not there. So being ready and prepared to provide follow-ups, to provide updates, to let people know what you're working on so that you're visible and people can really see your impact. I think that's a big area that everyone needs to learn when they're working virtually, but especially in this area when so much of what you're doing is behind the scenes.
No, thank you so much for sharing. That's a really important insight. Jess, would love to hear your take on that as well.
So right along the lines of everything that Tatiana said, again, like I said before, the confidence piece is figuring out the best way to build the students' confidence in the decision-making space, because that's going to be expected of an EA almost immediately when they take on a new role. And it's kind of daunting at times because you're in this new role. You're not really maybe like you don't 100% have your footing, but you have to be confident enough to say, nope, I have to move this meeting because this other one is taking the priority and we're shifting this out to 2 weeks from now. And the people might be upset, but it's, you know, it has to be done. And so you have to be okay with that and confident and comfortable with making those decisions. And then also one of the big challenges that I feel I personally face is sometimes I don't feel like I firmly understand where I fit into my organization, because I support tech executives. I'm not a tech person. And so I sometimes lose sight of where I fit into the organization. And so I have to go back and dive deep into their mission, the vision, and so that I understand, like, if I'm making sure that my leaders are focused on getting these initiatives done meeting these goals, that's where I fit into this overall overarching mission and the goals. And sometimes EAs can lose sight of that. And so it's important for them to be able to dive in deep into what an organization does. What do they actually provide to the customer? And where do you fit into the grand scheme of things within that role?
Okay, thank you so much for that insight. Christine, do you have any insight into this?
Yeah, so I think it was already said too, but because you're working virtual, I think sometimes it's just good to make sure that what you're doing, that you're accountable for communicating that out, because there's some some folks that are wondering, what are they doing all day? Or so I think that's important. And then also in terms of like relationship building, I think to be intentional with, carving out time to have like a virtual coffee with somebody to get to know them, because it's in these roles, it's all about your relationships and your collaboration with other folks. I think that might just be a suggestion, just to find ways to be kind of more intentional in building those relationships.
No, that makes perfect sense, like to be more intentional about that. China, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, just to add, with our industry, like mentioned, we're very customer facing. So I think that will be the weakness there, is as they're supporting their leader who is there with the internal, external customers, the assistant will need to have that face-to-face, on-site versus virtual. So that will probably be the biggest common weakness, is to be there for the leader that you're supporting as they're supporting out the station.
Thanks so much, Shanna. Okay, I know we're like really close to time. This will be the last question, and we can make it rapid fire. I know you already looked at the curriculum in itself, but are there any thoughts on improving the student learning outcomes and course objectives to really more align closely with the industry standards and expectations? We'll just quickly start with China.
I'm sorry, I'm having issues with my clicker.
No worries.
No, as I mean, we're entry level. Like I said, our recommends and are preferred needed for this position, but I see that everything on here is intact with what we need for our industry.
Okay, thank you so much, Tatiana.
Yeah, I agree. I think the curriculum is strong. Something that came to my mind is, I think, just based on the industry you work in, some are PC Outlook people and some are Google Gmail people. So potentially being able to get an expertise in both areas and how to manage those professionally. Because I know a lot of people have personal Google accounts, but maybe they don't have experience having a work one, and it can be different. So kind of being able to understand both operating system types of things.
That makes perfect sense. Jess, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think being able, if the students are able to have like a segment where they have an open forum with EAs within the industry, where they can have Q&A and get some real world feedback and get some real world experience or opinions based on the EA's experience, that's golden. Just being able to ask those questions.
Thank you so much. And Christine?
Agree with Just, yeah, anything that can be added for like a real work experience or an opportunity to job shadow or speak with folks in the real world just to get an understanding of what it's actually like would be helpful.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now will be the segment where we do questions for the panelists. So thank you so much for that. And then I see that, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, but Thias, would you like to start with the question?
Sure. Hi, it's Thais.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. My question was, on the employer side, what sort of training and onboarding are you doing for new hires?
I'll take it. So for executive assistants, a lot of it's less about the role specific, but it's more hands-on, getting them introduced to our processes and our people. But we don't have like a formal per se onboarding program for someone in this role, but it's just more on the job stuff.
Right, because I was thinking everyone talked a lot about the importance of the personality piece and how essential that is, and the importance of like understanding hierarchies and everything. But it's very hard for us from the faculty side to train that in that when obviously I don't know how the hierarchy works in each one of your companies. So I think it's kind of like a two-way street, you know, maybe there could also be a conversation about, okay, how can we train people to understand our company culture better so that they can fit in rather than just waiting for the perfect candidate who has all the hard skills or all the soft skills and also an amazing personality. You know, it's not very realistic to me.
I think they just need to be themselves, honestly, and need to understand themselves and where their strengths are and where, you know, because it is a two-way street. They have to feel comfortable coming in the organization. So I think they need to understand sort of what's a good you know, a good mix, a good match for them. Like what kind of leader? Are they looking for someone that's going to be very more directive, or would they like a role where they can sort of help be at the seat with the leader? So I think, I know I hear what you're saying. I think that would be really hard because there's not something you can teach them other than, you know, for them to know themselves better and to kind of hone on some of their technical and some of their softer skills. And just, you know, we want them to be themselves. So we're not going to ask them to be something different, but, you know.
I think the hard thing about them being themselves is that some of them are going to come in with very different experiences than other, right? So for example, at West Los Angeles College, most of our population is Black and Latino students, and they're going to have different standards of what it means to work in a workplace and be quote unquote professional than maybe white students would have. So you say you don't want to change their personality, you just want them to come in already knowing a white communication standard that is simply much harder for some students. And I just, one last point, I promise I won't take the whole Q&A with this thing. But I heard someone mention like, okay, what if you had panels with industry professionals and then they can get real life advice? That would be great. But if you're not even doing training, do you have executive assistants who are available, not just to these meetings with the staff and the faculty, but who are available for meetings with students, mentoring? I think I work here at community college and we have these like various programs where employers can get engaged and mentor students. And it would be great if we had more employers like interested in doing that. You know, everybody wants to hire, no one wants to train. It'd be great if there was more training. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I can tackle that a little bit. And so that's part of one of the topics of our project. So one of the things we do with the SWP funding is we engage employers. One, this is a conversation around curriculum development. So once programs are generally up and going, they have advisory committees, and they also have the opportunity for folks from the industry to come in and engage with students, either through offering internships, job shadowing, employment opportunities, and just conversations in the classroom. But at this stage, in terms of us looking at this particular skill set for the virtualized workforce and virtualized employment opportunities, we wanted to hear from industry in terms of making sure that we're safeguarding the process of curriculum development, getting insight from the experts to our faculty who are experienced educators to make sure that they have great experience in designing curriculum for our students that comprise our California Community College system. And they know the ins and outs of our students and their student needs. It's just making sure that we have those chances to intersect and interact with industry to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students and preparing them well. Echoing everything that you said, preparing them well for industry. Understanding that students do emerge in the California Community College system at various levels. Some students have bachelor's degrees when entry, some students have master's degrees when entry, and some students may not even have the secondary degree when they're entering. They may not have completed high school, and they're coming to the California Community College system to sometimes complete high school, but also sometimes looking for a career. So we're very much in line with your questions. But I do have one question. And I want to thank all the panelists. I think your insight and answers were incredible. I think we want to thank you for participating. One of the nice things that I want to remind everybody is we're looking at a virtual executive assistant, administrative assistant platform. And I think Ms. Robles exemplifies and embodies some of the things that we wanted to talk about in terms of one, she's with us today and she's in New Jersey, right? And And as we're looking at career opportunities for our students who are in this virtualized space, yes, there'll be a lot of students that may choose to work in California, but any remote position, there's some positions that say hire anywhere. We want to make sure that those students are prepared well for those jobs as well, because this potentially creates an opportunity for someone who's living in California to be a virtual assistant for someone in Kansas, New Jersey, New York, etc. And we want to make sure that we're including employer input. Yes, there will be some that will say, yeah, we only hire in state, but we want to make sure that the skill sets that we're discussing, which I think our panelists have done an excellent job of describing, can work well for that entire group. And I think the representation of our panelists in terms of their backgrounds and diversity of employers actually adds to that understanding of the global needs for the workforce. My question is, if you were starting again looking for a virtual assistant, executive assistant position, what would you do differently now than before?
That was for me, directly for me?
That's for anyone who wants to answer. It's open-ended question.
I don't know what I would do differently. I would maybe get the project management. I should have got my project management certification before I left the Air Force when they paid for it. That's a regret that I have, but that's probably it.
Anyone else care to share?
I don't have anything necessarily different. I think there were some things that maybe I didn't understand 100%. And this kind of goes back to the question of training. I think the onboarding and training process looks different for each company. I know at my current company, we generally have like a one-day orientation, all the benefits and everything. And then generally you have a mentor or one person that kind of creates an onboarding schedule for you, and we'll go over the best practices and the systems and the processes. I know at a previous company I worked at, as Jess mentioned, sometimes you can feel kind of isolated as an EA on a larger team, where maybe you're the only one. And so I know that it can be commonplace for EAs to kind of be their own pod. So across all departments, the EAs will connect and work together. And so that is something that happened at my other company. And so they would work to mentor one another as an EA group and provide like context and history. Like, okay, this executive, this is kind of their preference and how they like their calendar stuff to be managed. This executive, this is something they do every year, and that's what you need to know. And so I think kind of understanding that collaborative piece among the EAs, because at some companies, as Jess said, the EAs are the one making the decision because they're going to be the ones working as a team together. And sometimes it's the executive making the decision. And so that dynamic is something that I wish I would have understood a little bit sooner as a recruiter, is like how crucial not only collaboration with the people whose lives you're organizing, but also collaboration with other EAs who may have different styles from you, but who can provide kind of guidance and insight into kind of the best practices and how things operate. So that's a little bit of kind of like how our training stuff happens, and then also maybe something I wish I would have understood a little sooner.
Thank you.
No, those were great points, and Dr. Young, thank you for that. I know earlier, and I might mispronounce your name, but Dr. Odemaris, I know you had your hand raised. I don't know if you want to unmute and engage the panelists. And then once again, I want to echo everyone. Thank you, panelists, for such great feedback. I think it's instrumental in the work that the community colleges are doing. So, Dr. Odemaris, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Basically, what I wanted to first, I want to say thank you to the panel for bringing all these great information, been taking notes. And I wanted to let you know that the course that we presented was just one course that we want to implement to a wide variety of programs that we have. And that's, this is a add-on. So we will have Tableau, we will have specific courses like the ones that you already mentioned. And we do have some of the courses, it's like executive assistant, we do have something business communication, in which it covers a lot of materials that you mentioned. But of course, not project management. And I would like to add that to the entire program. So everything that you just said is amazing. The one with the Google, for us, it was in that course. We were gonna give just a little brief information in Google, brief information in Microsoft. But if they're gonna go into executive assistant, they have to take the full course. But we wanted to apply this to other programs that like in the somebody was talking about social media. So there is a certificate in social media, and we wanted to, for those individuals who wants to be social media, virtual social media, we wanted to apply this course into that. And the question that I also wanted is on the security part. I don't know if any of you guys in your organization, I'm pretty sure Amazon will do that. If the person works from home, and let's say I have a laptop, do I have to take it to your location and then you have to put all the security applications so that I will keep everything secure? Because I know if I work for the government, they will do that. They will ask me to take that laptop because they don't want us to, you know, play around or have the information secure. So I just wonder, in the organization that you work, if you require the individuals to go to a site to put those security components.
I can go ahead and chime in on this. So for United, throughout the network, you are actually assigned a company laptop, and everything is already in there. All the updates and automatically is installed.
Okay, good. So you provide the laptop.
Yes.
What about Amazon and
They provide a laptop for me, and it has a security key, and it's by my biometrics, and you know, it's got websites that are restricted because of security reasons. And so it's the same as my government computer was, but you know, but a different network.
All right, thank you.
Same thing at the Fed. We highly secure, so everybody gets a laptop and then ongoing training about security. So.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted. I was concerned about that part because yes, we're going to teach the students about the good things about how to keep ourselves secure, but what about the company providing that software that will keep everything secure? So that's what I wanted to know. Thank you so much.
Amazon also provides extensive training as well. Very, you know, frequent extensive training on security, keeping everything safe.
Thank you.
Great question, Dr. Odemaris, and I hope I was pronouncing your name right. If not, my apologies. But
yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Great, great.
Thank you.
And then we have another question on the chat, and by Anne. Anne, feel free to unmute. But the question is, what project management applications are being used? I like to go to Jess first because I know you touched base on that, and how you wish you would have gotten your project management certificate. So any input on that?
So we have a lot of internal resources within Amazon that we use. We use a program called Quip, and it gives us an ability to make checklists, to collaborate with other people without having to send an attachment in email. You can just add them to the document, and you're allowed to collaborate. And this is how we create, you know, agendas for offsites, and we create the tasks, and we set the goals. And so that's one of the big ones that we use. And it's a living document basically that gets updated as the person is in there. You can actually see them in their typing, you know, as they're typing. And so it makes it really efficient for us when we're coordinating events for various offsites, or, you know, all employee meetings for the whole organization. So it makes it nice.
And that's internal within Amazon?
It's internal, but it's similar to what Google Docs would be.
Okay.
So where you can just collaborate, and you can either send a link, or you can add the person's email to the document, and then they have access to it at that point. And then I wanted to touch on the first person who asked the question about, are there mentors provided, or can we mentor? I'm always happy to mentor from my role, from my position. I actually mentor military members who are transitioning out of the military. I mentor them on interview skills, on how to transition from a military organization to a corporate organization, because it's very different. And so I'm always happy to help there, and Alicia has my contact information. And we do training in Amazon. It's called an executive assistant in training program, that when a person internally wants to move from another role, maybe like a fulfillment center, into an EA role, they'll go through this program. But typically we don't have any training outside of that for EAs when we're onboarding, because it's expected that you have that experience already with these foundations that are being provided by this organization here.
Thank you so much, Jess. And we would definitely be sharing the lookbook information as well as a recording, and then we will be sharing the contact information to Dr. Young, who would definitely share as appropriate. But to the panelists, do you have anything to add to Anne's question?
I know past companies I've been at have used Asana. That's been kind of our main project management tool at Asana, and then Google Docs definitely for like document collaboration. It's been the biggest one.
Thank you.
Same, Asana, and then some folks use MS Project and OneNote too, but that's more for organization, but it's got some project management aspects to it.
Thank you so much. I know, Allison, I think you have your hand raised. Love to give you the opportunity, so the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. It was so wonderful. My question is, to the panelists, with your experience, do you find that most of the employment positions are, I guess, a part-time, like a W-2 employee type of thing, or do you see more of it as independent contractor type of work? Thank you.
I'm a salaried employee at Amazon. I'm full-time.
Yeah, ours are full-time as well.
Same here.
Yeah, same here.
No, that's a great question, Allison, because we want to make sure that we're leading our young adults into sustainable wages and paths that are going to be able to lead to economic mobility. So thank you for that. We still have time for maybe one more question. So open it up to anyone if you want to unmute or put it in the chat. So we'll give it a few seconds to see if anyone else has any questions.
I think somebody asked what type of project management, right, they were using. Is that Asana?
Correct. They did answer that question previously. Asana was mentioned as one of, yes. No problem. Any other questions? No questions. Okay, so again, I just want to reiterate a great thank you to the panelists for taking the time to provide their expertise and feedback. I really appreciate it. I actually want to segue it to our colleague and our peer, Ruth, with Pasadena City College, who will be speaking on an upcoming event that we're actually be conducting in collaboration with the colleges. So, Ruth.
Thanks, Jose. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the panelists who were here today, and also for all of you for carving out the time to be with us. As you know, for this project, we have 3 pillars. The first one is curriculum development, which you heard from our faculty. They're currently developing a course. The second is the regional advisory with direct input from employers. And the third pillar of this project is a regional career fair, focusing not only virtual assistant roles, but remote jobs in general. So for work from home, hybrid roles. And we just want to give a shout out to LAEDC, who's doing a wonderful job and getting really great employers to onboard for this remote job fair. The date is March 22nd, and it's happening completely virtually. And we went live as of a week and a half ago. And so far, we've been getting an amazing response. We have close to 300 students signed up already with very little advertisement. And we really want to make sure we share this opportunity for your students at all our 19 community colleges. So I'll share this via email as well, but I'm also going to put in the flyer and our landing page on chat. And again, I just want to thank LAEDC and LARC for your support of this project. And we're really excited to provide as many of these opportunities to our students.
Thank you, Ruth. Segue back to Jared for a poll discussion that he's going to launch. But again, Thank you so much to everyone. We will follow up with a recording as well as the lookbook and then the hiring event as well. So Jared, if you can launch the poll and then
Yeah.
yours.
Cool. So just launching this poll, if you could please take a quick moment just to fill it out. It really helps us as we continue to do these events. Really just want to make sure that we're finding ways to improve our engagement and our collaboration with the community colleges, as well as our ability to serve the students of Los Angeles County. I want to just quickly say a quick thank you to everyone involved. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Dr. Young, Dr. McKeejian, as well as our incredible panelists, Jess, Tatiana, China, Christine. Thank you for joining us. I have our contact information up here. So if you do have any questions or want to just talk about anything related to this project, feel free to contact us. I do want to make sure I don't end without announcing that we did send over Grubhub coupons for your lunch. Your lunch is covered today. If you didn't receive it, feel free to complain to these email addresses. We'll be happy to send over a code if you did not get it. But yeah, thanks again for taking the time. I know it's Friday, so hope everyone has a great weekend. It was a great discussion, and we'll be in touch for future opportunities to collaborate. Dr. McKeejian, if you want to say anything at the end, I want to make sure that I give you the floor to say bye to everyone.
No, I don't want to stand in the way of everyone's lunch and their Friday afternoon, but thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you, Dr. Young and the entire PCC team, LAEDC and Centers of Excellence. And to our industry partners, we so appreciate you, value you, and would love to continue to partner and collaborate to ensure that we're preparing our students for the workforce. So much appreciation. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everybody.